Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bash on the Buttons. I'm your host, TJ Stevens, and we are playing. I have it this week. You ready? I have it. WWF In Your House for Sega Saturn. eBay came through. By the way, all these strategy guides and video games on here that I order to do this show, and I get them. When the seller does a great job, I promote them. When the seller does a bad job, I promote that too. The seller did a phenomenal job this time. Package, nice, well-packaged box. And then he actually put this sleeve around, protective case around the game. Well done. Fantastic. 5 stars all the way around. 5-star review. But yeah, we're going to do In Your House Sega Saturn. Last week, we played on PS1. Seemed to enjoy ourselves. Was okay. Decent enough game. So, if you also remember, our next game was supposed to be Tag Team Wrestling for NES, but my NES has decided to take a nap, and possibly forever. So we're going to have to pivot and pick a new game for Tag Team Wrestling. And I want to do a console we haven't played yet, which we've played Pro Wrestling for NES. We've played Super WrestleMania and Super Brawl for Super Nintendo. We have not played the Sega Genesis. We're getting ready to play the Sega Saturn. We have not played the Sega Genesis, so maybe we do Monday Night Raw for Sega. Maybe. But if you're new to the show, it's Friday when we normally do the show, Friday at 9 p.m., but we were doing Drunken Pop before this. We had a heated discussion. You missed that on Wrestling's Mount Rushmore. Look that up on our YouTube channel at Markout Moments. And so Friday, we normally pour ourselves an adult drink. This is the same drink from the previous show. And also, the first week we play a new console, we fire it up so you can relive the startup screens of your childhood. And since we played a PS1 last week, we got Sega Saturn this week, a new startup screen. So let's fire it up. Let me find it on here. There it is. And boom. Sega Saturn is on. And away we go. Oh, that's a great startup screen. What language? I think I just did this earlier. I actually did this earlier, like an hour before we started doing Drunken Pop, just so I wouldn't have to do it now. See, it is 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Boom. Here we go. Do these take memory cards? I was not paying attention. Doesn't look like it. No. And again, we talked about this last week when we were playing In Your House for PS1. There's a real good chance, I would say almost a certainty, that here in the next coming weeks, you're going to see me popping on here randomly, playing PGA Tour golf, playing NASCAR 25, playing MLB The Show, maybe some Madden when it drops, things like that. Resident Evil 9 Requiem. Games like that just pop on. Just a bunch of nerdy video game fans playing video games. That's what I want to do here. Sculptured Software. Talked about it in our first video game we covered, which is Super WrestleMania. Can I hear this? It is the Raw theme song. We did have some luck with... Who did we win with last week? Was that The Undertaker? I think we had some luck with the Undertaker. We got murdered as Goldust. That was clearly not The Undertaker just now. It was The Underfaker, Brian Lee. I don't know who it was. I think I'm going to start off with the Rocket Owen Hart here this week. I pressed the start button. Didn't I? Yeah. Ah, there we go. There he is, my man, Owen Hart. There are few people on this planet I liked more as a wrestler than Owen Hart. I think we won. I didn't press anything, you son of a bitch. Yeah, we won the Intercontinental title last week with with who was it? Was it Goldust? No. Who do we win with? Reset. I said, oh, that's Access. Never mind. I redid my desk and everything is real close now. Like my headphone cables are real tight. I'm resetting the console. Because I didn't press the button. It said we were doing the Intercontinental Championship. I think we should do WWF season this week and then do WWF Championship next week to finish up our 3 weeks. I wish WWE could put Owen in a video game now. I don't know why they don't. Well, I do. I do know why. Never mind. It would be nice. And again, Owen, if I'm doing a Mount Rushmore of my favorite wrestlers of all time, Owen's on it for sure. I almost had the name Jack not existed, my son's name today would be Owen. And my daughter Piper, I made this very clear, was not named after Roddy Piper. She was named after Piper from Fallout 4. But Owen was going to absolutely be named after Owen Hart. All that being said, I completely understand why Martha Hart and that family have decided to do what they're doing with Owen and his legacy. And also, it is my opinion that no one is allowed to dictate to that family how they should feel and why or what they should do. That is crazy. As much as Owen Hart belongs to the fans, people need to understand, the fans need to realize that we borrowed Owen Hart from his family. It is that simple. They get to dictate what happens with the legacy of Owen Hart. We do not. See, a lot of people, when they hear that my daughter's name is Piper and my background, and again, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time is Roddy Piper. So a lot of people make the assumption that I named my daughter after Roddy Piper. I did not. And here's the fun fact also. I don't think a lot of people know this because it never aired. Years ago, like 20, where's my phone? I still have the voicemail. I think it was 2021. It was July of 21. February 2nd, 2020. Wait, no. When was this? Okay, August 14th, 2019. This is going to sound wild. I was a top tier Patreon member of Sean Mooney, the former announcer for the WWF. At the time, he was promoting a documentary that we now know was the series of A&E biography documentaries they did in like 2021 and 22. One of them was Roddy Piper. And he said they were in the process of getting made. I contacted Sean Mooney and I said, hey, told him my background, giant Roddy Piper fan. I would love to give a fan's account of what was it like to be a Piper fan back in the day. I'm a giant Piper fan. And I may have told a little white lie that I named my daughter after Roddy Piper. And I was called and interviewed, and I did send them pictures of my daughter wearing a Roddy Piper t-shirt. that I had at the time. None of that footage aired. No, my phone interview didn't air, and I don't know why, but it didn't. And I have a voicemail from the director. I'm not going to say what his name is, but yes, I was very close to being on an A&E biography special about Roddy Piper, and I may have lied to get on it. Let's go back to the match. I'm gonna whip Goldust behind. Remember, we can't pick up the red one, so that makes us tight. Oh, you know what? This is already better than the PlayStation version because there's more buttons, so I can do more stuff, or it's easier to do more stuff. It's also much easier just to get my ass whipped. Man, again, I said this a lot last week, and I'll continue to say this. Goldust, man, 95, 96, dude, there were a few people more over than Goldust. When he debuted, are you kidding me? So good. I just whipped Goldust's ass. I didn't like that. What are we doing? Oh, I thought we froze. I'm upset. And I also thought about this. Maybe you giant video game heads know this. Oh, that's not fair. Do you think, because I do think this. Well, let me ask you this way. Do you think the PS1 had more wrestling games made for it, or was it the N64? I think it was the PS1. PS1 had a ton. I mean, it had this one. It had Warzone and Attitude. It had WCW versus the World, and then WCW. WCW. What was after versus the World? We played it on here. Why am I brain farting? But then after that, it was whatever it was. It was Nitro and Thunder, and then Backstage Assault and Mayhem. That's just WCW. Oh no, actually, that was both companies, wasn't it? I'm stupid. Then you had the ECW game, and you had, Backyard. Like there was a lot of games, the PS1 wrestling games, and I wonder that if, well, actually no, because Xbox 360 and all that, because of tenure, would beat all of them. But Brett just beat the shit out of me. So I think it was a PS1 record probably until like Xbox and PS3s and whatnot lasted, 15 years in between releases. Oh, shit. Here, bitch. What is happening? He's just chucking me around. Chucking. Where'd he go? What is... I just beat Bret Hart. Big brother. Again, the feud of 1994 in either company by far, Bret no one does not get its flowers, as the kids say. I think I just blocked an attack. Look at me go. Yeah, I know what I'm doing. I just beat Bret Hart. What up, Owen Hart? And again, three things I stick to my guns on. Earthquake should have won the title in 91. Owen should have won the title in 94. And Roddy Piper should have won the title at Super Bowl 7. Fight me. I think Owen should have won the title at WrestleMania 10. Well, no, because I really do love the Yoko run. When he was healthy, that man was so good. So maybe Owen wins the title at King of the Ring '94 and then drops it at Survivor Series. Although I didn't hate the Bob Backlund thing. Bob Backlund in '94 as turning psychopath was nothing to shrug your shoulders at. What just happened? It just made me go real slow. Piper. And again, I literally just sat here and spent all this time telling you how much of a super fan I was about Roddy Piper. But here's the reality of the thing. And I mentioned this during our show today about Mount Rushmore. When people keep bringing up Hollywood Hogan. To me, you can only bring up Hollywood Hogan in 96, 97. Especially with the finish of Sting Hogan at Starrcade 97. When that finish happens and we start 1998, the crowd had already turned on Hogan again, and not in a good way. They were over it. By that time, the NWO had won nonstop for a year and a half. And then the finish happens. You spent a year, 14 months building up Sting just to have that finish. He was supposed to be the guy that was going to take down the NWO when you've already beaten Flair, you've already beaten, Arn Anderson, you've already beaten all these guys, Macho Man Randy Savage, just to then beat Sting and essentially cheat to have Sting win. Finally. So now you're saying the best of WCW couldn't beat the best of NWO unless they cheated, which the NWO cheating is why we're here to begin with. And with all that happening, we start 1998. The crowd was spitting Hulk Hogan back up again, and the NWO as a whole. It'd been a year and a half. Let's make a star. Sting was gift wrapped to you. And you got cute and made it complicated for reasons no one understands, and shove not being tan up your ass. What a stupid reason. Vader could have worked the WWF title with Shawn chasing him. Agreed. And again, if it's my company and my second biggest pay-per-view of the year in SummerSlam, and it's my world championship in the match, and my champion, regardless of what the challenger does in the ring, the champion in this moment is in charge of the situation. He's in control of the match. And he decides to hop off the top rope, stomp the challenger in the face, and start berating him in front of the crowd and telling him to move his fat ass and just showing the world how fake my matches are. Not only would Vader have been the champion coming out of SummerSlam, Shawn Michaels never would have worked for the WWF ever again, had it been me. I understand. Listen, you are a once-in-a-lifetime talent. You are one of the top 3 greatest workers this company or this business has ever seen. You will never act like that on my pay-per-view ever again, because I'm never going to give you the chance to. You've embarrassed my company, you've embarrassed yourself, and you've sullied my championship. Get out, is how that would have gone. To this day, I will never understand why Vince put up with what he put up with Shawn Michaels. I don't get it. Now, did 02 and beyond, but now granted, in full transparency, when Shawn retires in 98, I hated Shawn Michaels. And I don't mean the wrestler. Now, granted, I couldn't differentiate between the two. I didn't know Shawn Michaels the person. But, hold on, guys. I have to take a phone call. I'll be right back. Sorry, work called. But yeah, I will never understand why Vince put up with Shawn. Again, is he an all-time talent? 100%. One of the greatest to ever do it. And if it wasn't for Shawn's 02 and beyond career, I would still have that opinion of Shawn. But man, and like what I understand is business insiders, like wrestling insiders. I don't understand why Vader didn't work in the WWF, because you killed him right out of the gate. You have a world championship match, and your champion berates him and calls him a fat piece of shit in front of the world. Like it's just odd, because you at home and me sitting here know for a fact, in any other era, in any other wrestler, that happens. When Vince McMahon at the helm, that wrestler's fired, with the exception of maybe Steve Austin and The Rock. Any other wrestler's fired, and The Undertaker. I just don't. I don't get it. I don't. I do not understand. He fired people for a hell of a lot less than that. Better wrestling superhero: Blue Blazer, Hurricane, Captain Insano. Well, this is tough, because Captain Insano didn't make his wrestling debut until AEW. Hurricane, tremendous. Blue Blazer, which one? The 80s or the 99 comeback? Because I thought Blue Blazer as a heel, even though, it caused, look at that, beautimous. It caused one of the, most unfortunate incidents ever, was Owen was rappelling down as Blue Blazer. But it was so good. So good, because it was so out of touch and oblivious, really. And a stereotype. Or not a hypocrite. It's Hurricane. It's Hurricane. Goodness. No, I'm in the ropes. Rope break. Shit. And you know what the sad part about Vader's just complete downfall in the WWF? The WWF at the time was in desperate need of a heel, and they had one. And they were just like, yeah, but Shawn Michaels. And just Vader's never the same in North America. He's never the same. He has downgraded the rest of his career. In Japan, he still did okay. But his North American wrestling career ended SummerSlam 96 against Shawn. Was it 96? Against Shawn. Yeah, because Royal Rumble 97 was said Shawn. Like I think that the most disheartening thing is, as a fan, I'm one of these guys. I'm an Uber podcast listener. Love going back and talking about the old historical stuff when I was growing up, all that jazz, right? And I hear about this match. This match gets brought up quite a bit. Vader Shawn. And you had Shawn, who's a babyface, but acted like a complete jerk off in that match at SummerSlam. Again, the WWF needed a heel in the worst way at the time. Again, we don't have Team Canada Brett yet. And you had him. Vader was the guy. And now, granted, go back and listen to interviews from, talking about that time frame. A lot of people didn't like working with Vader because he could be stiff and he stunk and all those things. But, you think Austin liked to have matches that with guys that laid it in. You had Mick Foley waiting to do Cactus Jack Vader Part 2 in the WWF. Like they were, I'm not sitting here trying to say Vader should have been champion for an extended period of time. Royal Rumble 97, maybe WrestleMania 13. No farther than that. But again, all that was wiped out in one night with one spot because Shawn Michaels lost his shit on Vader on pay-per-view. I don't. And like, I'm a giant Bruce Pritchard podcast fan. The man's a fantastic storyteller. He's entertaining. His impressions are second to none. But to sit here and tell me and tell us that the plan for the fall of 96 was not Shawn and Vader when there is a pay-per-view called In Your House, It's Time, and that's not supposed to be Shawn and Vader? What? Because, if you remember, not on that show, In Your House, It's Time, not appearing on that card, Vader. Because what happened before that? Shawn Michaels embarrassed him in front of the country. Oh my Lord. Right on the top of the nugget. Oh, I didn't realize what I just said. Nugget. I'm Owen Hart. Vader is no joke in this game. He is just mauling me to death. That's domination, Holmes. Didn't even give me a chance. Actually, the Mount Rushmore episode is a Drunk and Pop. We were discussing most underrated wrestlers, underused, underutilized. Vader. So much there they could have done. And they just let Shawn ruin it overnight. We're still talking about it. So you probably figure out I don't understand how I just don't. I don't get it. Again, people were fired for way less than that. Than showing your ass on pay-per-view and essentially making your world championship worthless because you're yelling spots in the middle of the ring. But hey, Brett didn't want to drop the title to Shawn. He wanted to drop it to Shamrock, and that was a step too far. Again, I grew up a WWF kid. They did the national thing. They mastered it well before anyone else. WCW came beating on their door, and WWF adjusted and came out on top. And you still look back and you just wonder, like, how, with some of the decisions they made from a personnel standpoint and booking and things like that, how in the hell did we get here? Because they did some really stupid stuff over time, especially in the 90s. In the 90s, everyone glorifies the Attitude Era. And I was a teenager through it. I turned 13 in 1998. But I go back and I watch it now. The Attitude Era it's pretty overrated. Like it does not deserve the love it gets. The majority of the Attitude Era was trash. Here's a hot take. Outside of Austin, Mankind, The Rock, Undertaker, in 98 and 99, Triple H, Big Show, the big names. Outside of those, the tippy top guys of WWF, you guys ready for this? WCW was better than. They just couldn't program with the shit because they had Vince Russo. Which is also why I will tell you, WCW in the fall of 2000, and I need to make this very clear, because of I stopped watching WCW religiously at the episode of the Finger Poke of Doom. Why? People forget that night was the same night Mick Foley won the world title on Raw. It was just pre-recorded. So the butts and seats thing. And I've talked about this before, but maybe not recently, is when a guy like me who's watched wrestling, at that point it had been 11 years. I started watching in 89. And Mick Foley's my guy. And anyone who's Mick Foley's your favorite wrestler, you don't like Mick Foley because of like his in-ring ability. You like Mick Foley because a hell of a promo. But also he is willing to do things and put his body on the line in a way most wrestlers of that stature are willing to do. Right. And I was offended when Tony Schiavone said, "Oh, that'll put butts in seats." I was offended by that. So once that night happened and that line was uttered, and then I saw his Finger Poke of Doom, all the same night, I was no longer an avid every night WCW Monday Nitro viewer. I didn't watch it for months. I came back, started watching in the summer of 99. When Randy Savage comes back after Spring Stampede, I think. And then Bischoff goes home September of 99. They bring in Russo. Now, granted, I don't know that, right? I wasn't a call the hotline newsletter reader at the time. So I don't know that Eric Bischoff is, going home and never to be heard from again. They bring in Vince Russo. Again, I don't know that either. And you know what? I'm going to give WCW a chance. It's the fall of 99. I'm going to give WCW a chance. I haven't watched them in a while. I love wrestling, though. I'm going to give them a chance. I'm going to see what they're up to. And I turned the channel to WCW Monday Nitro, and I see freaking Oklahoma. And it took everything in me to not swear just now. I see Oklahoma. And I'm a big, even at the time, I'm a big JR mark. And I see Oklahoma. And it was so petty and so cruel and tasteless and all that stuff. WCW has all this talent on their roster. And this is what they're doing. Oklahoma. I need an advantage here with Owen. What do we do? I've lost to Vader like 31 times straight. Let's pull out the instruction manual instead of me just getting sentimental. We'll continue that conversation here in a minute. Oh, look at the cover. Look at the back cover of the instruction manual. I'm trying to pull it out and I'm tearing it. Space Jam. Look at that. Yeah. Where's my controller's down here. Let's pause this shit so I can read this. Oh, you know what? I bet the difficulty's still like impossible. I didn't turn it down. Pause. Owen Hart, page 13. Butterfly suplex, down, P. Which one is P? A, B, C, X, Y, Z. Left and right trigger. What is P? The hell is P? Am I dumb? Sharpshooter, left, SK. What is that? Hold on. What is going on here? Where's controls? 2. What? Just show me a button layout, brother. Brother. By the way, I just watched a Hulk Hogan documentary. And okay, punch. I need to write this shit down. Punch is X. SK is super kick, which is C. So Owens, down P, down X is a butterfly suplex. Down. I said down punch. Down punch. Okay, let's try that. I got Vader right where I want him. Down. How do you block shit like that? I'm just getting gored. Wow. Embarrassing. I think I touched him. I tried to do a suplex and he did a suplex. That's not fair. My God. My Lord. My Lord. Oh, I don't want to do that. You know, one of these days, I need to go through and actually configure my OBS screen so you can't see like the recorded logo on the bottom and the border and all that stuff. But I don't have the motivation. I'll do it one of these days, you know. What were we talking about? That what was I so passionate about before the control button scheme just threw me off entirely? Was it still Sean and Vader? I think we're all ready to move on from that, you know. What happened here? What happened? Well, in the last show, we are talking about underrated wrestlers. Raven should be on there. And here's what I love. If you go back and watch Raven in WCW in 96 and 97, well, he wasn't there in 97 or 96, but, 98. And again, I have great admiration and respect for Eric Bischoff for what he did with WCW, put the WWF on their knees. I appreciate the fact that he had the fucking, excuse me, my language, the balls when he was with It's On Easy. That's embarrassing. When he was with TNA to go head to head with Raw on Monday nights because nothing else was working for TNA at the time. But this, oh boy, I don't remember what I was going to say. Just blank. My brain, as soon as I said, but I think, I don't remember what, my brain just dumped. I don't remember what the lead up was. What were we talking about? Woo! Matthew Elvis Presley, help me out. I know you're in the crowd. What was it? What were we talking about? Bring me back. My wife and I were discussing whether I have CTE at age 41. By the way, I love the fact that the Ultimate Warrior's ring locale is just the desert. Because he lived in Arizona, because nothing in his character development, promos, anything had anything to do with the desert at any point ever. I love it. I love everything about it. Well, his finisher's a clothesline. Are we not like rated? Because I'm thinking that like Owen, the way I've just lost to Vader and now the Warrior, I'm thinking Owen is rated like a 62, and everyone else is like a 95. Oh Lord. Oh, that's cute. Well, I've tried that combo of down punch at least a dozen times and has worked zero. Ah, thank you, Tony Schiavone in Oklahoma. So I turned on WCW Monday Nitro one night. That's embarrassing. That was a long time ago. I brought that up. And I see Oklahoma, and I was a giant JR fan. Arguably, and I'm only going to say arguably for JR's sake, because he doesn't like it when he's called the greatest announcer of all time. He would say Lance Russell or who is the man? I can see his face, Bob Caudle. But he's arguably the greatest wrestling announcer of all time. And I see this fat douche canoe wearing a Sooners jersey, the barbecue sauce, openly making fun of Jim Ross's cerebral palsy and his face paralysis specifically. And once I saw that, I never watched WCW again. Now, later on in life with the WWE Network and everything else, and Peacock or whatever else we've had to watch WWE on, I've gone back and watched, WCW pay-per-views from like Bash on the Beach 2000 on. And again, it's amazing. WCW in late 2000 and 2001 was on to something. The show was getting better. They had a focus. They made it about Scott Steiner and Booker T and Jeff Jarrett to a degree. They were bringing the cruiserweights back. Not only were they bringing the cruiserweights back, they're bringing the cruiserweight tag titles into WCW. They were going back to what brought them to the dance. And then 01 starts. They're trying to sell. It seems like Bischoff's the front runner with Fusion Media. And then I'm not the Warrior. We switched it up. But yes, I'm Owen Hart. But then, you read the Nitro book by Guy Evans. And they changed the deal at the last minute that they don't get the television time slot on TBS and TNT. Essentially making the offer worthless. WWF buys them for pennies on the dollars, not even a proper phrase. They bought a wrestling company that 3 years prior to that, made $65 million for $2.5 million. That's bananas. And I believe if Bischoff would have been given the chance, because he said they were going to take a couple-month hiatus off television, do the Big Bang in May or June of 01, and then essentially restart. I think I'm not going to sit here and make the grand proclamation that WCW would still be around to this day, because I probably don't think that. But WCW would have made it a few years. I don't know if TNA exists if Bischoff buys WCW, because I think Jeff Jarrett stays where he's at. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it was I just did a move. I didn't mean to. It was a series of bad choices, bad personnel moves, and just poor taste on some of their skits and gimmicks and whatnot. Just turned me off of WCW. I gave up on them. And it was heartbreaking because again, DDP, one of my dudes. I became a giant DDP fan during the Monday Night Wars, and Booker T, and Big Papa Pump, and all those guys. But they made it real hard. Made it real hard to cheer for WCW. And Judy Bagwell on a pole. Canyon was the shit. I don't care what anybody says. Canyon was the man. Let's be Hunter Hearst Helmsley. I bet you I'll win all my matches with Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Here's a guy WCW didn't do enough with. Lord Steven Regal. He did a feud with Sting in 1994. That was pretty good. Pretty good. And then they never interacted again. I was a giant dude. I started watching WCW in 96 regularly, and I was such a huge Lord Steven Regal fan. Oh, I need to open up my Hunter Hearst Helmsley page on my book here. Page 14. He's the next page after Owen. Isn't that fun? Pedigree. Right SP, which is Z. So right Z. Okay. I got it. Right Z. Oh, he just pulled a. Oh, I did it again. I was gonna do something. Quit it. Trying to do stuff. He's gotten me twice with that move, and it's annoying. I'm in the ring. I don't know he's coming, and he shoulder blocks me. I need to make another drink because this is gonna. By the way, I haven't smoked in almost. It'd be 4 months on the 9th, and this game's making me want to. Not really. It was. If you're out there thinking about quitting smoking, here's what I'll tell you. I smoked for 20 years. 20 years when I quit, or just short of, or maybe a little bit more. Who knows? I started smoking at the age of 20 when I was stationed in Mississippi. I was chewing before that. If you're thinking about quitting smoking, you're not gonna tell you. Quit buying them for one. Just don't buy any more cigarettes. When you run out, you run out. Start buying Zyn nicotine pouches. That's what I use. Start at 6s. They make 6s, 3s, and 0. Actually, they don't make 0s, 6s and 3s. Do the 6s. Do a couple cans of 6s. Move to 3s. Do a couple cans of 3. It takes me, I don't know, 4 or 5 days to go through a can of Zyns. And then, I feel like if I went through my last can of Zyn, which I have probably half left, if I went to that can, I feel like I could just not buy anymore after that. Does that make sense? I don't feel the need to buy more. I'm not going to be grumpy if I don't buy more Zyn. And, the most important part of any sort of addiction, reading as many psychology books and studying the way I do, not saying I'm an expert, because I'm not, but you read these things, and more or less, oh, that was hot. Bulldog. You read these accounts and people who kind of made the trip back to earth, so to speak, and pretty much anyone who recovers from any sort of an addiction, specifically ones that are in heavier throes, right? Cocaine, heroin, meth, so on and so forth. But there's more, right? There's gambling. There's, you know, I can't think of any more. I just drew again. My brain just shut off. But you know, there's more serious addictions out there. You need a reason to quit. Sometimes for people, that reason is they hit rock bottom, which for me in alcohol was that. Now, I never quit drinking. I just got to the point where I told my brain, because I do like alcohol. I like tasting, sipping whiskeys. I like drinking different IPAs and beers. I enjoy the flavors. I enjoyed the flavor profiles of vodkas, right? But I had to get to a point where I was willing to tell myself, this vice of mine, alcohol, is not going to control me. I'm going to control it. And once I got there and was able to pull it off, you know, I really usually if I'm drinking, you're seeing me on camera doing these shows. That's about it. I don't drink too much more than that. Why is it always the warrior? But yeah, just, you know, quit smoking. If you want to quit smoking, take some Zins. When you're running out of Zins, just try stopping. See what happens. Thomas Crown writes, what was Vince thinking booking the Brawl for All but having it be legit shoot fights? What was he thinking? I don't think he was, because I don't think he booked it. From all accounts, it sounds like Brawl for All was Vince Russo. And he got it from the UFC. He wanted to have a UFC type shoot fight on WWE and what you got was the Brawl for All. It was the shits. I would say. Here's the worst part about the Brawl for All. Not only was it stupid and got a bunch of people hurt, arguably the worst gimmick tournament match concept ever. Had a bunch of people hurt. It tanked most of the careers of people that were involved in it. Maybe with the exception of Bradshaw, was the one that made it past it. You had Mark Marrow, Bart Gunn got knocked the fuck out by Butterbean. Steve Williams, never the same in North America after that. Who else is there? Flash Funk. But it sounded like, now I will also say this, I don't believe for a New York minute that Brawl for All was created and put on Monday Night Raw to punish JBL, because if that were the case, it never would have made television. Vince wouldn't have allowed it. Vince McMahon wouldn't have allowed it. But I think, and not to mention, it tells the audience, you know, the rest of these matches are fake, but these ones are real. You know, I don't like that. But for what, there's no star power in the Brawl for All tournament. Nobody knew who anybody in that is. Bob Holly, Bart Gunn, Scorpio, Steve Williams, JBL. There's 6. Who was the other 2? Mark Marrow. Who's the one I'm missing? Man, I'm actually impressed. I got 7 out of 8. I didn't research this at all. Who was the other one? Oh, man. Was it Hawk? Was Hawk the other one? Why do I not remember the Hawk being in it? Okay, it was Hawk. There's no star power. God bless LOD. They were not LOD in 99. So I think, you know, Vince Russo tried to get too cute and do a Brawl for All tournament, and Vince McMahon signed off on it. for reasons I don't understand. And they made, and I legit believe they thought like, oh, the guy that's going to win this, we're going to get them over with it. Nobody got over with it. Bart Gunn got knocked the shit knocked out of my Butterbean and was never, his career might as well have been over after that. Not, I mean, to be fair, he also won the Brawl for All. We didn't see him for months on television, regardless. Yeah, they tried something new. I don't think they thought all the way through. They just kind of threw it together, and we know how it worked out. Brawl 4 was a giant mistake, but you know, I can't fault them for trying new things. They just didn't think it all the way through. The matches were, yeah, it was so weird. Like, you're gonna throw boxing gloves on, but also like, hey, takedowns count. Like, what? I have gloves on. It was stupid. It's arguably the WWF's worst idea ever for a gimmick match or a gimmick tournament or whatever you want to call it. It's bad. I wouldn't have done it, and I don't get it. But to be fair, also, I've never booked a wrestling show. Excuse me. Let's keep this in mind also. When Brawl for All debuts, what was it? The summer of '97, I think it was. Austin had been a thing, right? He's a thing now, but he wasn't Austin as far as popularity level. The WWF was looking for a hit, and they found it. They thought they found it. They were pretty sure they were going in the right direction with Austin. But they're like, hey, we need a little bit more attitude. Let's try out the Brawl for All. Didn't work. I don't fault them for trying new things. I just, for the life of me, cannot understand how Vince McMahon, now maybe he was stretched too thin, because we're not too far. We're a year and a half from the XFL, you know, and, or 2.5, whatever it was. And maybe Vince is distracted. He's an on-screen character by this point. I don't know. But yeah, Brawl for All was, if it's not the WWF's worst idea ever, it's close. It's top 5. Choke slam by The Undertaker, you some bitch. Efren's here. My man. Efren, the conversation we had at Drunken Pop tonight, and, you know, we're kind of continuing here, is I just get destroyed by Owen Hart. Mount Rushmore of wrestlers who are the most well-known. So mine was Hulk Hogan, Steve Austin, Andre the Giant, John Cena. Really had a hard time leaving Piper off of there, but I did. Timmy, pretty much along the same lines, but he didn't have Andre, or he did have Cena, but who is his number 3? The Rock. And Dave was along the same lines. Who does Efren have for his 4? Not most important to the business, not 4 favorite, 4 most well-known wrestlers. And I was, you know, you can make the argument for Batista also. Why is this game so hard? No matter who I am, no matter who I'm wrestling, I just get murdered. I mean, I don't know how you do. Like, Hogan, Austin, Cena have to be in the 4. I don't know how they're not. Then at that point, you're just trying to find number 4. And, you know, the more I sit here and think about it, and even at the time I thought about it, I think Batista is higher than any of us realize. Will you let me turn it down? It says it's easy. I don't believe you. What's below easy? Let's try this one more time. I'm going to be the bulldog. Let me find him in the manual. The manual. Page 10. What's special kick? Bret Hart, of course. Super kick is C. So right, C. Should be a super power slam. Or running power slam. What up? Great point, Efren. His answers. He says you need to ask people who don't watch wrestling. So Jandy actually did chime in and she immediately named Hogan and The Undertaker. So there's that. Oh man, I forgot the blue Bulldogs is wearing blue pants. Well, that was hot. What was that I just did? Running power slam did it. Oh, we hit it. What's the next one? Belly to back suplex. Right kick. Timmy said Macho Man. No, yeah, Timmy said Macho Man because it's Slim Jim. You think Jake Roberts is one of the... Hold on. We need to chronicle this. You think, and I'm not shitting on you, Efren. You think Jake Roberts is on that list? Again, mine was Hogan, Austin, Andre, Cena. And I can't argue Macho Man. When Timmy explained it, you can't argue it. But Jake? Like, Jake was huge. Don't misunderstand. I don't think people understand, like, the level Jake was over in the late 80s. I don't think Jake is on the list. You have him listed right here. What is happening? I don't understand. I quit. This game is crazy hard, and it shouldn't be. Telling you what a non-wrestling fan in my house said. So, the other person in your house said Jake Roberts. Really? Where do they know Jake from? Now I'm curious. That's wild to me. Maybe I'm looking at this wrong. That's a nice crucifix. Maybe it's just towards them. So I need towards them is me just getting my ass whipped. Again. This is uneasy. I can't go out like that, like some bitch. We're gonna keep playing. I got half a drink left anyway. Hulk Andre, the masked guy, is 3. I don't know why, but the band Vanilla Fudge just got stuck in my head. Keep me hanging on, you know? But I watched the Hogan documentary on Netflix, and I will give them credit. They covered Hogan a little bit more harshly than I would have thought, to be completely honest. Yeah, Andre, Efren says Hulk and Andre, they both said right away. Again, I don't think people realize how famous Andre was in that time. Everyone knew who Andre the Giant was. But I will give them credit for covering Hogan fairly. His wrestling career. They didn't understate how big he was, because again, he was huge. There's no question. But also his post-career, Bubba Love Sponge thing and everything else, they were candid about it, which I appreciate, because most people that do a documentary don't do that, for obvious reasons. And this game was terrible. I think I've won 2 matches the entire show so far, hour and 6 minutes in. And listen, I understand that Netflix show was without sounding overly condescending, a puff piece to Hogan, because there's a lot of things they could have covered about Hogan they didn't. Hogan, they had Jesse Ventura as one of the interview guests on the show and never mentioned Hogan busting the Union or throwing Ventura under the bus, which to me is odd, because that's a giant part of the 80s. I don't know how you discuss Hogan in the 80s and not bring up Jesse Ventura and the Union thing. That was crazy. They don't bring up Sting and Hogan in Starrcade 97. They don't bring up really anything. They mentioned very little about Hogan's WCW run, as far as what he did, how he was received, the whole 9 yards. And again, I understand it's largely a puff piece to Hogan. I get it. But I just want one of these documentary makers that do one on wrestling. Okay. And mind you, a large part, I just got destroyed. 21 seconds. A large part of this is the wrestler also being willing to do this also, is let's do the downside. Let's do the negative side. Let's talk about it. Honestly, I just shit on him when the show started. I think Sean would be willing to do that. I think Sean would do that. Let's talk about the bad parts of my career with the good parts. Take inspiration from it. Realize you're never at too far in the bottom to make your way back out. But it's really bothersome, both as a a wannabe journalist and human, or maybe even I've considered dabbling in acting and things like that, but the fragility of ego from both the documentary makers and the documentary, why am I saying it like that, documentary subject, to say, I want to cover all the fun parts of my life and career, but none of the negative. And for them, the other party go, that's reasonable, is crazy. If I'm making an all-encompassing documentary on the career and life after wrestling of Hulk Hogan, there are 3 questions that immediately pop into my head. And the unfortunate part is none of them mention the AWA, which, as a wrestling nerd, the AWA transition to the WWF is the most fascinating to me. Specifically, what happens if Vern agrees with Hogan and Hogan stays with the AWA. Again, I said in the last show tonight that Vince, it's kind of public knowledge that Vince would have gone Dusty or Kerry Von Erich. But what does Hogan with the AWA look like? Again, I don't think people realize how much the wrestling landscape changes if Hogan stays with the AWA. Because if Hogan stays with the AWA, Gene Okerlund stays, Jesse Ventura stays, Bobby Heenan stays. There's a litany of wrestlers that stay in the AWA if Hogan doesn't leave. But none of my questions to Hogan about the no. My first question to Hogan, talk to me about WrestleMania 7. How did we get here? What are your thoughts on the attendance? What were your thoughts when they had to change venues? what were your thoughts on crowd reaction to this, so on and so forth? Crowd reaction to the storyline, Slaughter, so on and so forth. Question 2. What exactly were you waiting on to join the NWO? Because again, those who are familiar with the story, told by Nash, told by Sting, told by Eric Bischoff, Hogan was essentially a game time decision about whether or not he was going to join the NWO. Kevin Nash just did an interview where they were watching Hogan come out to Bash the Beach 96, and he said up until this point we didn't know Hogan was coming up. Now, is he serious or is he selling a story? Great question. But part of me believes him because WCW tried to fake themselves out so many times. It was crazy. Question 3 for Hogan, if I was doing his documentary and talking about his wrestling career. President of the United States. What are we doing? We've got an explanation why Starrcade 97 happened. As much as we all hate it, we've gotten a reason for it. We've never got an explanation why the President of the United States Hulk Hogan thing almost happened, which actually led into the finger poke of doom. That was the lead in. And after Hogan's career, what's funny about Hogan, he's one of those guys, he disappears after wrestling, does his own thing. Then we see him come back and do Hogan Knows Best. A little bit more time in the spotlight. Good for him. Running Power Slam. I think he started, what was his reality wrestling show? Was it Micro Wrestling? Hogan's Micro Wrestling? Did the Australian boat tour thing with Flair. Like, he's such a fascinating character that I don't know enough about, because you hear both sides of the coin, right? You hear the stories that you want to confirm that Hogan's kind of a dirtbag backstage, and he only doesn't want to put anyone else over, just want to put himself over, doesn't want to do jobs, doesn't want to blah blah blah, creative control. And the only people you hear say otherwise is kind of Hall and Nash. And that's kind of it. Like, you don't really hear anyone else say, oh no, Hogan was reasonable to deal with backstage. You don't hear that. It's just always the other stuff. And to be fair, other than Starrcade 97, can anyone watching this or listening to this in the chat think of another time that you heard that Hogan put his foot down other than Starrcade 97? Now, the question would be on that is, did it not happen because he didn't decide to do it, or did it not happen because they just knew to book him in a way that he wouldn't have to? Like, I watched the Hogan documentary on Netflix, and the whole time I'm thinking in my head, I would kill for Randy Savage to still be alive to do the Retort documentary, the Randy Savage documentary, because nobody knew the skeletons in the closet, and no one knew Hogan better than Randy Savage. They were coming to the business in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s. They both blew up around the same time. And once the mega powers explode, those two are now, they're joined. They are joined together, like it or not. And Ahmed Johnson's home venue is just the locker room, which is certainly not weird. Because we've all heard the stories. What's the reason behind the shiner at Hogan and WrestleMania 9? I've heard Hogan said he got hit in the face by a jet ski. I've heard other stories that Randy Savage just dotted his eye because Miss Elizabeth was at Hogan's house and Hogan denied it. Now, let me rephrase that with Linda. Linda was also behind it allegedly, but it's I would love to hear Hogan's ascent through the 80s and 90s, and also here's Macho Man Randy Savage. That is enough losing for me tonight. I'm pretty sure my record is 7 and 130. And I think with that, I'm ready for bed now. It is 10:45 Eastern time. We've got an hour and 17 minutes. So next week, we will finish up. We're going to wrap up In Your House for Sega Saturn. I cannot thank you guys enough for joining in the chat and talking with me, giving me topics. And I've been talking now for almost 3 hours. My throat is sore. I need more beverage. Thank you, everyone. In just a few weeks, it's May 1st. Just a few weeks, I will see you in Nashville for Ring Classics, Jeff Jarrett's Asylum. In the meantime, we'll be back next week for WWF In Your House, the finale. And then we're going to have to figure out what we're going to play next. I think WWF Raw for Sega Genesis. We haven't played a Sega yet. A Sega Genesis. You tell me. In the meantime, this is TJ Stevens for Bash on the Buttons, and we'll see you next time as we continue WWF In Your House for Sega Saturn.